Lou Shapiro is a federal and state criminal attorney in Los Angeles. Lou, thanks for being with us again. We'll talk about Michael Cohen in a moment, but 4 defendants now in that Georgia RICO case have flipped against the former president. If he were your client, would you tell him to cut a deal?
Well, that's a tough one. Without knowing all the evidence early on, to say, hey, let's jump right to a deal. You know, everybody has a different situation when it comes to these cases. You know, oftentimes when there's many defendants charged at once, each defendant, while may seem to have similar interests, when you look at their own individual lives, careers, and what they have on the line individually, sometimes it yields a different result. And for these attorneys, what they're thinking about is not political office. They're thinking about the ability to continue in their careers, continue practicing law, and have a future after this. Trump is in a different camp. Trump is thinking more like, well, I got an election coming up. I want to put my best foot forward. I want to look strong. I don't want to look weak. So his interests are different than the co-defendant's interests. So it's not jump to a deal necessarily for Trump, just because other ones have played so far.
He may not want to look weak going into an election, but he also doesn't want to look like a convicted criminal going to jail. The prosecutor in this case, Fonnie Willis, is putting together a case that is connecting all the dots in that RICO investigation through plea deals. Are the dominoes now starting to fall?
Not necessarily. I mean, Trump would have expected early on that there are going to be pleas taken. The more defendants you have in a case, the more chances are of people falling, like dominoes. So Trump will inevitably, and always was planned to be, last man standing. It just remains to be seen how many more pleas will be taken. But again, Trump will be arguing in his trial that I based my decision-making on experts in the law. And if they messed up, that's on them, not on me. I have the advice of counsel defense. The fact that they are pleading guilty to doing the wrong thing, that arguably can enhance his defense, because he will say, look, they're admitting they screwed up. This is their fault, not mine. I retain them to provide legal advice to me, which they tell everybody now it was wrong. Well, why should I get punished for having ill-advised attorneys?
Jenna Ellis now says that she believes that she took advice from people senior to her, which is pointing an indicting finger towards Rudy Giuliani. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I would agree with that. Look, she's in a situation. She is one of the younger attorneys on the team. She's 38 years old. She wasn't, in terms of, I think, where everyone had their roles in this thing, it didn't sound like she was in the inner working planning of all this. She was more on the outside, disseminating messaging from the inside. And that's what she's trying to say. She's saying, in hindsight, I should have done more due diligence on my own to fact check, legal check, and so forth. I relied on what was being told to me by more senior and seasoned attorneys on the inside when I was disseminating information to the outside, and I apologize for that.
Lou, now to the Michael Cohen case. What does it say about a defendant that the testimony of his former fixer in a $250 million civil fraud case is the second story that we're talking about in the interview? The judge has already said there was fraud, which means they're now working towards those damages. How successful has the state been?
Well, so far it seems like they've made quite a splash in terms of, hindering his ability to potentially do business in New York, having that first ruling coming out against him saying that there was already like a prima facie or on its face ruling of fraud from the get-go. So it's definitely an uphill battle for Trump in this case. The fact that Cohen is one of many people that are testifying against him, I don't know how much that says, because they've had an axe to grind for already years. So if it was just this one case and Cohen is coming to testify against him, that would say a lot about, yes, his fixer going against him, coming clean and coming out against his former boss. But with all the dirty laundry between them going over the past few years, I don't know how much credibility Cohen has at this point in the game.
Lou, final question before I let you go. The former president says he looks forward to testifying in this case. His fortune is on the line. Trump Tower, other assets could be seized if the state wins. Can he help his case or only hurt it?
Well, that's going to be up to the judge in the end. But, Trump's bigger question or point that he's trying to make is that he's being treated differently than anybody else. He's trying to say that if it was anybody else who maybe exaggerated the value of their assets, they wouldn't even be brought to court. They would pay a fine, they would pay the differential, they would move on, write a letter, and so forth. He's saying that he is this is just another example of him being a victim of a witch hunt in a long line of prosecutions and civil cases. That if he wasn't running for president, he wouldn't even be here. What the judge does, we'll see.
Attorney Louis Shapiro for us. Lou, as always, thank you very much.